Hi, chat. Hi, Potato. Hi, Pens. Hi, Dad again.
Hello.
How's it going, guys? Oh, you even have... I forgot that you put the Trials of the Nine on there, too.
Yeah, it's Trials of the Guardians.
I know. It's just gonna be interesting to chat about all these different ones.
Oh, yeah.
Because bringing in the Nine back into this feels a little weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Mitch.
Yeah, Pins, these headphones are definitely interesting. Like, the, I don't know how to explain the difference. It's definitely different, though. Ooh, that guy just got assassinated.
Is it because you're hearing us through your jawbone? And so it feels like you're hearing it differently, or...
Yeah. Because, like, I'm used to... I think the best word would be the timbre is different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping I don't get a headache from it.
Hopefully not. It shouldn't.
I don't think I will, but
Is it tinnier or something? Like you're losing the
yeah,
bass? Yeah.
yeah.
That was one of the complaints I did read about with those guys.
But I mean, for what I'm using it for, this is actually exactly because I can hear myself, and that's one of the big things I do like. Oh my god, there's so many crawlers.
You feel great this week. Good. I'm glad you feel good, Trigger. Okay. So the show notes for this one aren't really any show notes, but I figure with...
I figured I was just gonna turn you two loose.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of talk about the original Trials and then Trials of the Nine. And then we can dive into what Trials is now and whether or not the theories going into... is it still being used in the same manner that the original Trials was being used? Lux, you've read Trials and Tribulation, right?
Not all of it, no.
Okay, cool. That's okay. This isn't over that book in particular. It's just going to be a little bit about the story and the weapons and like the old lore a bit, because the story and the weapons is kind of cool. They did a really good job, I think, of writing a Trials encounter through
Thanks,
the perspective of
Pins.
the team.
You're the
Thanks,
best.
Pins. Holy crap.
Are you talking about the encounter between the speaker and Osiris, or just Brother Vance in general?
So the summoner has stuff about a fire team that goes into the Trials, right?
Oh yeah, that poor fire team.
The poor fire team that basically gets
No, the hunter that gets experimented on.
Was it experimented or like
She
kicked
basically
out?
summoned. No, it was the warlock who was experimenting on the hunter. She summoned a nova bomb inside at her chest, and then slowly dissected her.
Oh,
Saint was like, "You're not a guardian," and she's like, "No, I'm not," and she walked away.
yeah.
It
But
was
all the different weapons are based off of that encounter. Like it's from
yeah.
their perspectives.
Yeah,
Which
it
is
was
kind of cool.
that was a rough card to read. That was not the only sad trial story we got either. We had the one with the Titan, who was very dark and had a revolver. And I have
As
questions
in
about.
going back to your idea of Yor and Rezel.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if that was a hint at Rezel or not, because it was a Titan. He had a hand cannon, and he didn't have a problem killing guardians. But the only problem with that is the timing. And
Because of
which is what
Trials
yeah.
versus being regular
Yeah.
Crucible. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and that was my only complaint was I was like, yeah, I'm like I think it was a nod. I think it definitely I took it as a nod to Rezel, but
For sure.
the timing of it was the part that was just like I'm like, no, this doesn't make sense in my head. Where are these guys? Oh, they're up above me. Okay.
Okay.
Oh no. You bastards.
All right. I am. Whenever you have a moment where you're not getting hunted by hunters,
Oh my god, they're so. Then these are the. Oh, we killed one. The other one's gonna be pissed. Oh no, he's mad.
did they go? They enrage like a ogre or
Mhm.
something?
Well, because you killed their mate. They hunt in pack, or they hunt in pairs. And so if you kill one before the other,
Aw.
it's
It's
the
Crimson Days, but with aliens.
yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, it actually that is probably the best way to do it, yeah. Or best way to explain it. But yeah, it's
Their
their
mate-ish.
colony mate or colony pair. I don't know exactly the word for it, but
Okay.
okay. As far as getting this thing going, let me get back over here and I will start recording if you guys are ready.
I'm good. Lux, you ready?
Yep, let's go.
Sweet.
All right. Well, welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on April 24th, 2020, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring the various trials of guardians. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is, I'm taking it for the team, guys. I'm going to be the next Hunter Vanguard so you guys can turn in your silly medals and stop being
she's
scared about
trading.
participating.
She's trading in her Dialogian title, and
Yep. Trading in that Dialogian that I hope these episodes release in order, because otherwise that's going to make absolutely no sense.
it's actually I realized as soon as I said that, I was like, that's not going to make any sense to anybody because
Thanks, Blue.
I thought it was funny.
It
Inside
will be funny
joke. Inside joke.
about
Look,
another week or so.
yeah, look for it in a week after you hear this episode.
But joining us in the hot seat tonight is a good friend of the show and a friend of mine, Lux Regalia. Yeah, I took over Blue's announcing duties because he's getting himself killed in Halo at the moment. Hello, podcast people who can't see this. So, Lux.
Hello.
Oh, buddy, old friend of mine. You've been on the show before.
Yes, I have, and I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah, welcome back. So, we're going to talk about Trials of the Guardians tonight. Now, we're calling it Trials of the Guardians because we're going to dive over a whole bunch of other things. But if, for the folks at home, remind them where they can find you on all the different places they could find you, that you would want them to find you, I guess.
You can find me at Twitter at LuxRegalia and at Twitch at twitch.tv/LuxRegalia.
And if you are a fan of watching any sort of Crucible play on Twitch, Lux does a really good job of not only playing himself and taking people through trials and everything, but also teaching. I actually learned a ton of Crucible strategy and pacing and knowing your gameplay and understanding your gameplay from this guy. So really go hang out, go give him a follow, go give him a shout out over there. So we have kind of a rundown of questions. I can't remember if we did the rundown of questions for you with like your favorite lore and the history. I think we did.
I think we did the favorite lore because that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a staple before you got the what is the average wing beat per minute of a swallow questions going.
Mm-hmm.
Which is all I can think of every time you start with your what is your favorite story lore story. I was like, come on. Ah!
It's okay. But Lux, you want to remind us what your favorite lore story is? Or if it's
My favorite
changed?
lore story happens to be the lore around Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten.
Specifically the Luna's Howl because of Luna the dog, or...
Yes, because of Luna the dog. I have a dog at home, and she means the world to me, so I kind of really empathize with Joseph.
Yeah. That one is definitely a kind of a sadder, one of the sadder stories, but still, Luna was a good girl.
Yes, she was.
But
The Hive deserve everything that's coming to them.
oh yeah,
The moon
for
dog.
sure.
All I want to know
Moondog.
is I just want to see the Russian cosmonaut outfit that she was wearing on the moon.
I do too. I think Jake drew it. Watermelon Exo. I think he did a version of her
Oh, did he?
when
Well, that would
doing
make
his
sense. Yeah,
Guardian dogs.
that would make
But
sense. He does because he was doing the rescue
yes, he
thing a
was. He
while
was
back.
doing
Yeah.
ASPCA. So we're gonna kind of skip past that a little bit, Lux, and I want to kind of get your input on how you feel Trials is, because you've gone to the lighthouse a couple different times. You've taken people there. I want to get your input on what you think as far as state of the game and Trials and the changes that we got in the TWAB this week, which today, for those listening in the future, this is April 24th. So we had the TWAB drop yesterday with all the new updates that they're planning on doing for the anti-cheat, as well as some changes made to Trials itself. So what's your hot take on all of that, Lux?
I feel like most of it's a good change. I'm kind of I wouldn't say just a little upset, but a little confused why they tried to reinvent the wheel when they brought Trials back in the first place.
Yeah.
When it came down to like how the tokens worked, the fact that people playing couldn't get any rewards unless you got 3 wins, stuff like that. But the introduction of bounties, the bounty where it gives you the 3-win reward as long as you just participate, is actually really good. Keeps the population populated, keeps some of the games from getting too sweaty too fast, and hopefully will mitigate some of the gatekeeping that's been happening, where people have been resetting their cards just to get tokens and then try to
Mm-hmm.
farm whatever rolls show up.
Yeah, that is going to be nice. That has been actually the reason I've stopped playing Trials. Like, I never played Trials back in D1 at all, and I really wanted to give it a shot here in D2 now that I feel like I can actually compete at a level where I could do fairly well at it. And it just felt like there was such gatekeeping going on. And I'm glad that they're changing the token system in so much of how many tokens you get at what level. Like, there's, I think if I remember correctly, they said you're going to get token drops at 3, 5, and 7,
And it would get progressively
respectively.
better if I remember right.
Right.
And it
Which I
also
think,
gives some masterwork materials too.
which is
Yeah.
great.
Well, and then they said something. Wasn't that is this the one that where they also were talking about the mods that were gonna kind of try to emulate the what was it, the adept weapons back.
That's still in the air as far as I understand.
Right, yeah,
They
they were
worked
kind of
on
like,
it.
I think it was like one of their brainstorming comments.
I don't think that's a good idea.
You don't?
Be
Okay.
interesting.
It's just too exclusive. Not many people are gonna get it, and if they make them too good, then it's gonna what's the word I'm looking for? Like, make it worse, the carries and the
Yeah.
cheating that is happening. Because if it turns out those adept mod slots are really good in PvE, then people are gonna want them. I
Right.
understand, like,
That's fair. Yeah.
when it comes to going flawless and that stuff, people like me want something that's exclusive, but not in the sense where like it's overpowered or anything. Just something that makes it a little special. Like having
You don't want to
celerity
break the
on those
game.
weapons would make it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I can say that Summoner has killed me more times than not for the people who got that auto rifle. That's a really good weapon.
It is very good.
It
It can
is.
actually run with really good perks, but I would still say hard light is still a little bit of a problem for me at least.
For everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
It's definitely around for a while. I was looking at a few articles this afternoon about how hard light is being used by the majority of people in Crucible, which I find it speeds up the gameplay in some ways in a different way than Shoddy's ever did, but I feel like it also, auto rifles to me are not in a terrible place, save for hard light. Being shot around a corner, that's kind of sucks on more than one levels because the amount of spam.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's the amount of spam, because like I wouldn't mind it. I think we kind of talked about this. Well, we talked about this in the future episode that's coming out next week. But,
Mhm.
you know, like the whole thing is if it wasn't just one weapon, I think I would be a little bit more able to stomach it. Like if it was like just like auto rifles or like bows, just like an archetype was being, overpowered. But because it's that just like that one weapon, like for me personally, it's just not even. I mean, I don't even enjoy like casually going into Crucible anymore because it's just I constantly get teamed up with, because I solo queue, and I constantly get teamed up with a 6-stack of hard lights, and as soon as that comes out, it's like, yep, I'm just not gonna even. I mean, that's just not even a reason to keep playing the game at that point. It's which is frustrating. I mean, and that's not a dig at anybody. That's just me.
Right.
Like, that's just frustrating.
It is frustrating. You do have to play a totally different style when you're up against a team of hard lights, and it really depends on the map.
Mm-hmm.
But other auto rifles like Suros and Monte Carlo are also very good, but they're not getting nearly the amount of playtime because I feel like the laser show has just kind of taken over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's easy to use. This is a combination of like the range you can use it at. It doesn't have any range fall off, and the fact that the ricochet rounds do double damage is also, like you said, really aggressive.
It's pretty devastating. We did use it the other day when we were getting hard lighted by a team of 6. We all put on hard lights and met them the next match and demolished them. So you can't. The problem is that you don't necessarily want to have to put on a weapon to counter another weapon's and just show them that you're the better player that way, even though it is a ton of fun to do. Because right now, I can play hard light at a bow range and feel pretty comfortable. I don't think that should be the case. Should an auto rifle have that kind of range?
Nope. Should not. Definitely shouldn't.
Okay. Well, what about any of the other changes that they were bringing forward with I know we're on console, so the PC changes don't necessarily affect us nearly as much when it comes to cheaters, but any comments or thoughts on some of the things they're planning on implementing
The
across
only
the
thing,
board?
the only thing I'm worried about is how the they're when it comes to the cheaters. If you match with a fire team that's cheating and you go with them to flawless or win a game with them, either in comp or regular Crucible, you're gonna get punished too. And that's a good idea, but it just comes down to like one of the niche cases where someone wants to be malicious and joins a streamer or a popular streamer and uses an aimbot every once in a while and they get caught. Then there's going to be a problem of they have to get banned too. You
Right.
can't pick your favorites. That's the only thing I can see them running into. But if they keep the cheating down, where like the playtime and the paywall, you might not be able to see that as much. But that's the only concern I can see right now.
I do know a friend of the show who LFG'd back in D1, who actually got banned back in D1 because when she LFG'd, the other person was was cheating back in D1, and she ended up having her account banned too because she was in the same fire team with them. So it's not necessarily a perfect fix, but I hope that people are cautious and careful when they're going into things. And problem is with some of the.
Oh, sorry. Go for it. Sorry.
I was just going to say there's certain types of cheats that are harder to catch than others.
Right.
Seeing somebody who doesn't ever miss, it's obvious that they're using an aimbot. Seeing somebody who things like the wall hack that is going on right now, where you can actually take down the walls, that's probably a bit harder to catch. It gives them an advantage, but it doesn't necessarily auto kills them for them. So.
Well, and I think they also call out that was one of the reasons they were going to be doing. It's not just like an automatic decision. They do review them at like fairly often. I mean, to me, that would be obvious that you would want to not. I mean, like auto decisioning on anything is a very touchy subject. Believe me, I understand that. That's part of my job. Like it's a nightmare to do. But especially something like this, I don't know. To me, it seems like you would almost want to install like And I'm sure they have a system of like, there's ticks or strikes against people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I
Lux?
agree with Lux on that. Is like, as a person who solo queues quite a bit, I think that it would be really annoying if, because I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know what everyone else on my team is doing. It's not my job to know what they're doing. And as a person who's doing Crucible, I don't think that's fair to put the onus on the player in that regard. I get the idea, but it's a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
Lux, you were going to say something?
Sorry, Lux, I interrupted you.
I definitely lost my train of thought. But going back to what you said,
Success.
one of the someone had brought that up on Twitter, and if I'm not mistaken, DMG had replied just to leave the match. And it does kind of suck because if you're solo queuing in the comp, which a lot of people do, and you see somebody cheating, after backing out once or twice, you're starting to get bans from the playlist because you're backing out.
But would it count in a solo queue list though? That's the question. Like, it would count in obviously the normal comp playlist, but I don't think it should count in the solo queue because that doesn't even make sense. You're not actually tied to that other person.
Well, and do they have, so this is me not playing the comp list. Do they have a different playlist for people who solo queue?
Yes.
Or
yes,
they do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's me.
But
That's me not being familiar with that. So
no,
I guess that would be an easy way to distinguish, though.
Is just to pick your friends and make your decision to have those friends carefully. That's really what they're saying for right now.
Which
it's a hard thing to
I will kind of take that one because as a person who predominantly plays solo, it's not that easy. And I think if that's what we're gonna double down on, I think that's gonna ostracize a lot more people in the community than it's gonna help. I think will be my tactful way of saying that. Because I don't think that'll have the desired result.
Somebody in live chat was talking about how it's weird how the content creators are looking forward to, or no, when creators can't wait for the next gen console to get away from the cheats. There's a exodus that's possibly going to happen with people moving from PC back to a console because of the limitations that the console provides in for opportunities for cheating. Like, you still really only get network manipulation on console, which they addressed as well on the TWAB this week. But it'll be interesting to see if there is an exodus back because of that. I know that there are quite a few people who are talking about it, but they don't like the frames per second. They've gotten so used to the larger field of view and the smoother frame rate.
Yeah. The larger field of view I definitely can sympathize with.
But it'll be interesting. Well, I don't want to talk about Guardian games because, that's kind of a salty thing. Oh my god.
This is where my ignoring of social media comes in handy.
It does.
I got on right before because Potato messaged me and he's like, "Hey, everything all right?" I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "What's going on?" I am so confused why different people are got on. I was like, "Oh, that's the Simpson emote right there. Walk in the door, turn around, walk back out." Nope.
I think it's good in theory. I think there are some things that are going, unfortunately, pretty awry as far as some communication things that should have been changed.
And my biggest problem is there's no transparency on the calculations that are being made. So it's all about, let's just
they try
keep
to.
faith.
They try to, which I think is good. I'm glad they tried to communicate with us that, hey, don't worry, hunters aren't going to auto win because we're going to calculate things differently depending on the population, which I am fine with. I'm absolutely fine with this, guys. Like, don't come at me because of that. I think that's great, but I would like more information about it because at this point, there's so little.
It's so disparate.
Yeah, it's like the first day, Hunters were way, way, way ahead. I didn't like that because it doesn't seem like it's a good competition. It just seems like a blowout. And now Titans are quite a ways ahead, though Warlocks are gaining. Warlocks are getting closer. At this point, I just want it to be a close match. I don't care who's up top. I just want it to be an actual competition rather than a blowout because the last couple of days have been super sweaty online.
Oh yeah, I think the other thing is that people are. Yeah. So, anyways, about the lore.
Yeah, let's do that. You do the thing. Do you have any housekeeping notes?
No. Well, I mean, other than the obvious, like, so we, because of the whole COVID shelter in place, stress, blah blah blah, and all that fun nonsense. We actually, the silver lining of the whole situation is that we have gotten an opportunity to actually preload a couple episodes ahead of schedule. So you probably have picked up on that. We've mentioned it a couple times that we've recorded an episode that will be releasing the week after this episode releases. And then we are going to be doing another live stream on Sunday. So we will actually have a situation where we will be basically 3 weeks ahead of from the stream, which is really actually very beneficial to both Green and I because schedules are a little finicky, I think would be the easy way of saying it right now. That's a nice way to put it. It's the nice F word. And so that is going to allow us a little bit more breathing room, not just to edit and make sure everything's good on, the audio quality and stuff like that, but also to, just get a little bit more flexibility for scheduling because I know some of, like for instance, the individual that we're going to be recording with on Sunday is over in Europe, and the time difference has always been kind of rough for those particular things. So hopefully we can keep that buffer going for a bit, because then that means that we can kind of flex out when we actually record the episodes. The plan is obviously that we are going to still keep it on the Fridays at 10 p.m. Central for the vast majority of them. If that changes, always, we always update the Twitter accounts. And if you're not in the Discord, we do the Discord as well. We keep that updated that's actually probably where you'll probably get the most up-to-date information. So yeah, and other than that, the only thing I can think of other than that I am in the middle of is a vast rehaul of the site. I am in the process of designing what we've kind of started coming to call the Destiny Dialog Anthology. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to go through and collect transcripts of audio bits that are not in anything. So like idle dialogue, patrol dialogue, all that stuff. And I'm trying to form a kind of a collection of those quotes in a way that is usable to people. I think we have a pretty good.
Yeah, you're making a brainy quote for Destiny. That's what you're doing.
That's my end goal, and it's a lot more annoying than I thought it was going to be. So I would like to call it Destiny Sea of Screams.
It kind of is. He is starting with Toland.
I like that, actually. That's great. But yeah, so I'll probably, I mean, if you're into Discord and you want to, help with that, I'm always looking for feedback on what would make it more useful. I've been posting a lot of work in progress pictures of the website as I kind of go through the various pages and formats and stuff like that. So that's really the only other big housekeeping thing that I have.
Okay. So, Trials of Osiris. The first Trials of Osiris. When did that actually come out? Do we remember? Was it House of Wolves or before that?
It was House of Wolves.
It was House of Wolves. because that was one of the big things that kind of arguably saved House of Wolves from a content thing. Because House of Wolves, content-wise, wasn't a huge deployment.
Yep.
Story-wise, it was a great deployment, but...
So, House of Wolves deploys, we get the content drop of Trials of Osiris. Do you guys remember how they introduced it? Was it just we're just starting this thing and you jump in, or how did it start?
Yeah, it was a jump in. It was told on Friday that there was going to be Trials of Osiris.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was level enabled. So I just remember gearing up and trying my best to get to light level, because back then you had to infuse a etheric light into your armor and your weapons to bring them up to light level.
Mm-hmm.
And Skolas was one of the only ways to get it, apart from the Nightfall. And I remember that Nightfall vividly because it was the Tanix the Scarred strike.
Oh
on
no!
Burn. And Skolas was Solar Burn, and if you had a Yellowhorn, it was real easy to do that encounter.
Yeah, Skolas.
It was one of the very few times that you could use that word at that encounter.
Tanix, though. Gosh. With Arcburn? Gross.
Yeah, no. Arcburn, you just did go near the prison. There's a lot of laps run through that prison.
So, with the introduction of this, that very first week, you had to partner up with 2 other people. It was only 3 people allowed in. You had to have 3 people in order to enter the playlist. And those 3 people worked together to compete against another team doing the exact same thing, trying their best to get, was it 7 wins in a row?
It was 9 wins.
It was 9 wins back in the day? Is it still 9 wins, or is it only 7 wins now?
It's 7 wins now. Back when the Trials originally came out, there were boons you could buy using passage coins.
Mm-hmm.
Those boons were 1 Mercy, one where it was if you win your first 2 games, your 3rd win was free. And then there was the you start off with a win.
Okay.
So it went from 9 to 7 if you had all the boons, plus a Mercy.
There wasn't exactly tokens like we're dealing with now. There were tokens back then, but they didn't get you gear like they do now. Back then, didn't they only really contribute
They gave you the ability to buy bounties and actually get the boons and buy the token for trials.
Okay. And then you got the actual gear from completing bounties, correct?
Yes.
And winning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I pulled up the original Trials card. I'm going to go ahead and read this because I think it's kind of interesting with some of the newer information and the newer lore that we've gotten with it. So this is D1 Trials of Osiris. If you think you're ready, then you're ready. Brother Vance, disciple of Osiris. The cult of Osiris wants something. Whatever it is, it might be attained through violence. The Trials are a competition built to identify guardians who never lose. The warlock Osiris vanished into exile years ago. Unlike solitary Toland, Osiris left a network of acolytes and admirers who carry on his work. The cult invites only select guardians to their tournament, and only in teams of 3. The cult wants effortless teamwork, inexorable... oh my gosh, that word. Inexorable? Blue. I wish you could see this word. I'm terrible with that one. Anyway. Momentum. Like unstoppable momentum. I'm changing the word. I'm changing the lore because and something else. Consistency, perhaps, or luck, or fate. Any fire team that loses 3 matches is ejected from the tournament. Fire teams that win again and again earn spectacular rewards. So, kind of interesting knowing some of the stuff we got with the new lore with that and how that's changed. But for the most part, it's fairly similar. It never claims to be ran by Osiris, that Osiris sanctioned it, that this is a thing that Osiris wants. It's just saying, hey, his followers are doing this thing and they want something. They're going to give you stuff for it. You can go play? But
no.
I mean...
Yes.
No.
Yes. Maybe.
That gear, though?
As long as it's not Halloween event and everything is in blackout.
And the spider.
That, you know what though? That was the best Trials I ever played back. I did try to play Trials once in D1, and what I did, I remember this very vividly. It was the map on the moon. That's the Hive map. That the really close cauldron. I think it's Sea Point. There's a ledge you can jump up to, and during blackout Trials of Osiris, no one came from the outside lane because they didn't want to be sniped because there was almost always snipers over there. So I just hid above everybody, and we played hide and seek with the teams that we went up against in there. It was great. No radar. Anyway,
All
that's
the
my kind of.
spiders.
Yes, that too. But with the lore back in the day with Brother Vance had a more, I would say, auspicious personality compared to how we think of him now.
I would emphasize how we think of him, because I don't really think his personality has changed all that much. I think our perception of him has.
Well, sure, and Bungie's done that on purpose, which I think is really interesting. They've gone that route with him. The thing I wanted to ask both you and Lux about with specifically the original Cult of Osiris, but the original Trials, is that it's sanctioned through the Outpost, right?
Yes.
The Outpost is where it was hosted. With Mara being involved with it, do you think that Brother Vance was sharing information with the Awoken Queen about all the Trials experiments?
Are we just going based off?
I think he was willing to, but the new lore kind of suggests that wasn't necessarily. Mara wasn't really interested.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have, because and I think he did in a way, because Mara even kind of gave him like the little stop. Like she's like just stop, like don't do that, that's a bad idea, and he ignored her. And then, because that was right before Osiris reprimanded him about it, but that's also when he got the message that he was supposed to give Osiris from Mara. So, I mean, we know that he did share some stuff. I don't know. To me, it kind of seemed like he was not shy with sharing that information. Until after.
He also wanted things from Mara too.
He did want things from Mara, and it was also after the conversation with Mara that he decommissioned his Red Jack, the retrofitted Red Jack. He decommissioned her. I think it was Cheka. I can't remember the designation, but he decommissioned it, and he called out that the reason he decommissioned the Red Jack frame was because he wanted to make sure that he was the only one who knew what was going on, so that he wasn't able to be replaced. He was locking himself in to secure his position. So whatever was actually talked about between him and Mara, I got the feeling that he was kind of nervous that it was going to get back up to Fiora, who was technically his superior. I mean, that's how I read it. There's nothing that kind of points that, but
from what I read of that card or that book, I thought he decommissioned that Red Jack because, for lack of a better term, he thought she was soft because of what happened to have that little argument between him and the frame when the Guardian tried to destroy the other.
Right. Yeah. There was that because he was more he was more concerned with the what was it, the tones that were playing while that Guardian was getting dissected.
Well, as soon as the light is released from any Guardian during the Trials, the tones happen.
Right, but this was a different tone because of the way it wasn't an RTL tone, but it was a different tone from the normal kill.
Darker, I think.
Deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the one that I messaged you about because it was like, I know it sent you down a tangent. You were like, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
because it was the key changed or something, and you're like, that's not how that works. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the terminology used, you got to remember these people are not necessarily studied musicians or studied theorists when it comes to music or anything like that. So there is a little bit of forgiveness.
D
It's
sharp
just like,
minor. That's what it was.
yeah, so D sharp minor, the fact that, if I remember correctly, it talked about a shifting of it, of the tone shifting. That's an interval, not a scale. And I think they refer to it as a scale. But that's just like nitty gritty shit. It's like what Ziona gets angry about all the time with the astronomy and the science on that end. That's just me being super nitpicky on the music end. But that being said, I'm going to read Disciples of Osiris from D1, and this definitely gives a little bit of a hint of some of the things that we got in Trials and Tribulations, and the fact that Sister Fiora knew a little bit more about how everything was going than I think it is really explained in the Trials and Tribulations. So this is Disciples of Osiris. Encrypted. Champollion algorithm version 4. Key VANC. My brother. Despite all of Shaq's work with the Crucible, we must accept that the Tower may never be ready to accept the trials. But, as many Guardians flock to the reef, we are suddenly presented with not one opportunity, but two. Go to the reef. Tell Guardians your story. Give passage to any Guardian that requests it. If the Tower learns of this, do not fear. If they know the trials, the Tower will not suspect your other motive for dwelling so close to the margins between light and dark. Your sister, Feora. So, this is, in my opinion, a lot of foreshadowing to kind of the things we're getting a little bit more in Trials and Tribulations with Sister Feora and Brother Vance's experiments, essentially, and their being on the edges of light and dark and whatnot, and the fact that Feora actually sanctioned it a bit more than I think I realized. I had forgotten about this card.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think? Is it as nefarious as it thinks?
I don't know if it would be nefarious. I think it's manipulative. But then again, I don't think Feora has ever balked at kind of screwing over the Vanguard when it comes to that type of stuff. Like there's no love lost with Feora on that part, and we found that out with Trials and Tribulations.
Well, she doesn't exactly treat Vance very kindly in Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own theories as to that too. I mean, Vance isn't exactly the most humble individual either.
No,
I mean, like he comes in and immediately is like pretty quickly. And to be fair, at first she does seem to treat him with a deference of at least some degree of respect because of his I think it's his unique ability to like understand what's being said by Osiris in the various texts. Like he has a unique way of interpreting, and he's I think if I remember right, he calls out that Feora does recognize that.
Mm. So, Dancing Vuru brought up a really good quote from D1. This is from Taken King. It's flavor text for a quest step for generating 25 orbs using Nova Bomb, and it says, when you wield the void, you wield a key. When the void touches life, it unlocks the light within. Something terrible results. Brother Vance.
I'm sorry. Is the sword A key?
I mean, depending on it could be Kingdom Hearts. It could be a Keyblade.
Hey.
Here's your crossover
I was just thinking caboose. But
Oh God.
yeah, that works too. It's a key.
it does open things.
It
Probably.
opens your death.
But that, if we fast forward from the Trials of back in D1, there's the information there, and the trials and tribulations that we get that we're going to dive into a bit more later. The idea of a key unlocking something, or the idea of the light, specifically the void, being able to unlock something, is that an apt description, or is it more of something else is just reacting to it? It's not necessarily unlocking something and letting something loose or letting something free, but more so reacting with something else. Would you guys, with the towers and the spires that they're talking about, because you have the lighthouse in particular that is brought up quite a bit during Trials and Tribulation, not necessarily the lighthouse from D1, but a lighthouse.
Right.
And
Well,
the
and there, we do get
vibrations.
confirmation. Yeah, we get confirmation there are multiple lighthouses as well.
Mhm.
Yes. Which makes
So,
it weird why we built one in D2.
well, I don't think that's nearly as weird as you think, because if the deaths of Guardians in D1 for Trials of Osiris are based off of, like, they're vibrating and resonating with these lighthouses and possibly, quote unquote, charging it or tuning fork or however you want to think of it. If that is a aid to the possible Vex, the idea of us creating our own tower now or our own lighthouse in D2 would mean that Osiris wouldn't have the connection to the Vex in quite the same way. May be able to control it a little bit better. I don't know. I think that the original lighthouses definitely have a lot more going on in them rather than just it has a golden chest that you can hover over.
Yeah, there was a lot of secret rooms. Well, there was one secret room you could get into, and there was a Vex gate right underneath it. In
There was also
D1's
the room.
the house.
There was also the room with the Exo and Vex.
I think that was the same room, right?
Was it?
I think so. Actually, now that
I
I'm thinking about that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there was a little living quarters there with a bed, books. There was some like a skeleton and some Vex parts. There was a Vex gate there. There was a room full of glimmer, a room that had a
Mhm.
bunch of fuel in it, and what looks like a one of those tower ships that floats in every once in a while.
Okay. I do remember seeing the images of the glimmer being behind that the Vex wall, like the
Mhm.
gate essentially. Oh my gosh. The lighthouse, if the lighthouse was initially a tuning rod or a focal point on the planet Mercury, would it be akin to the past and future lighthouse port towers that we see in the Pyramidion? Are they the more real life version of it? This is just a spin foil throwing out. Feel free to disprove or postulate as you will.
Well, I wouldn't know unless we had a little more information about it, to be honest.
Hmm.
The only thing I'm thinking of is it was used as a tuning fork for anything. It would be going like relaying back to the Infinite Forest, because it would make sense that if they had the Vex had the knowledge of the frequency of a light, how they were able to hone in on Saints and eventually cut it off.
Wasn't Saint inside of the Infinite Net Forest whenever they were doing all of that though too? Or was he not? I'm trying to remember back into some of that one.
I'm pretty sure he was, but even when we were in the Vault of Glass, they didn't really know what we were doing with our light.
That's true. So you have Brother Vance and the Cult of Osiris conducting these experiments on guardians, needing guardians that are pretty ruthless. And then all of a sudden, Trials goes away. Trials disappears. It for game reasons, obviously. It's not like a lore reason. I don't think there was ever a lore reason given, or do you know if there was one, Lux?
Mm-mm.
No?
Nope.
Okay. So Trials disappears as far as in-game stuff, while Bungie decides to work on it for a while. It was gone for over a year. I can't remember exactly how long. And then we got Trials of the Nine. Totally similar concept, but different-ish outcomes. Did you ever go to Trials of the Nine Spire? Or I guess Depths, Lux, whenever
Yes, I
that
did.
was going on?
Anytime. When you went into the spot, well, when you went to the public space, there was the Emissary of the Nine,
Mm-hmm.
and then depending on how many wins you got, whether it would be 3, 5, or 7, you went up these little platforms up the spire. At 7 wins, you were able to see the top of the spire, but if you try to go inside, you would die. And if you went floss, you're able to go inside where you would land in an area similar to the place we go to see the visions with in Season of the Drifter.
Mm-hmm.
Except when you turned around, there was a giant horse constellation that was moving. And if you looked around, you could see that there was a dead ghost laying in the water.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that one. Dang. I knew about the celestial horse because people had talked about that quite a bit, but I didn't realize there was a dead ghost in there.
Hmm.
So, Trials of the Nine, did it function differently than Trials originally? I think it wasn't it a four-man event, not a three-man event?
Yeah, it was 4v4, and it switched weekly from survival to countdown.
Okay.
The gameplay was a lot slower, and it had those. It would show off your emotes and your loadout for both teams every single match.
I think that the successor to that is more of like your traditional. I guess Countdown is not even in comp anymore. They took that completely out. Comp.
Hmm.
I'm kind of glad because Countdown was kind of a pain in the butt to play. But if you had a system down, you were fine. I was not that good at it. But the the Nine, though, if the Cult of Osiris was using it as an experiment to figure out what's going on with Guardians and their interactions or accidental interactions with the Spire, how were the Nine using it? Would you think that they're using it the same way, experimenting on Guardians to see what they're capable of? Learning more?
I think so, because usually when you went on a killing spree or you won the game, the emissary would say something along the lines of "You understand death," or "You know true strength," or "You don't fear death," stuff like that, quotes like that.
Okay. Blue, do you have any the Trials of the Nine always kind of confuse me as far as
I always
why the
took it
Nine would even
because they're trying to understand uh, finalities. Like
right.
that was part of their experiment. I think yeah, this is totally just me kind of using my head to kind of rectify the two, but I honestly don't think other than the name they were really that related. I think the 9 were using the same functionality to test a different hypothesis. Now, we'll see if that's accurate, obviously, but to me, we had a lot of lore entries about the 9 trying to figure out death because they couldn't figure it out. And you know,
Right. And the
they
confidence
were
stuff
they were
like that.
trying to continuously communicate with us. So I think it's like the reckoning. Like, you know, they are using that to kind of communicate through whatever means necessary or whatever means available with the Guardians. That's how I took it. I mean, I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Okay. I always found that one just to be a little bit weirder as far as the why are they doing this? How did they organize this? It
Yeah,
wasn't exactly through the Drifter.
Right. Dino has that quote in there too. He says, "Zero was first contact. Trials were judgment. Reckoning is a lesson for you, for us." So it's a combination of, you know, the Trials of the Nine was a judgment on their part if we were worthy of the time investment. And so then when that then got transferred into Reckoning, that was when they were teaching us or trying to communicate with us fully. And
Does
also
make me
learn from
giggle a
us.
little bit because we have not heard from the Nine since then.
Oh yeah, they got fed up with us.
Yeah. You are not worthy.
They're waiting to see which banner rises the highest.
Osiris
Oh,
thinks
God.
I'm worthy. But
I'm just glad I didn't get yelled at for that comment.
yeah, you're fine. I'm going
you say?
past he's going back to Guardian.
I know. That's the thing. That was the joke.
Lux was like, oh god.
Oh no. I
Oh,
didn't see
no.
that on. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. So, Dino, I know we're talking about that with Trials and Tribulations when we bring that one up, but I do want to move on to modern Trials with the host of Saint 14. And does Osiris help build the new lighthouse? So Osiris obviously is sanctioning this.
Well, he's sanctioning it in so much as this Trials of the Saint 14 now. God, I love that card. That was so funny. Or that wasn't a card. That wasn't a card. That was the web lore, right?
That was a web lore.
Yeah. I'll call it Trials of Saint 14. You know how Guardians are with the names.
Oh goodness. Yes. What do we think about Saint running Trials now, and is it being used in the same manner?
I don't think it's being used in the same manner, but I don't know if it's for the same purpose.
I would also say it's a lot safer because
That's what I mean, though. That's what I mean is like, well, and that goes back to the situation we were kind of talking about with the rogue Lightbearer. You know, when it was Vance doing it, he allowed it to happen. When it was Saint 14, Saint 14 got involved. Like he came on the field and put the transgressor in her place. Like
Right.
it was not a oh, let's see how this, you know, comes or plays out. Saint got directly involved very quickly. Whereas with Vance, that wasn't. Vance actually, I think Lux made the comment about that. Vance actually got reprimanded the Red Jack because it wanted to. Was it that it didn't want to give it the win, or they didn't give it the win? Good, but Vance basically didn't care.
Yeah, because at the moment, I think what's happening was the Guardian was holding the other Guardian's ghost at gunpoint and was ready to pull the trigger. When,
it was
Vance
a violation of, was it C-23 something, Crucible Sanction C-23 or something like that. I was like, oh, that's cool. Got a little tidbit into the rules and regs, which also makes me think of the Iron Decree.
Yep, and the hunter rests herself to protect herself, and he said, "Give them the win."
Oh, that's right, because the hunter rezzed and instinctively threw Golden Gun.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah,
she did not want to die.
These are all from the weapons cards for the new Trials weapons, correct? Some of it is.
I honestly, I'll be 100% honest. I don't remember. I know
the Rogue Guardian is from the weapons cards. I do know that.
So the Guardian that pissed off Saint is from the weapons. I'm pretty sure. The Warlock. Hang on.
I think the one we're talking about is from Trials and Tribulations. The other one, Saint got involved, from the weapons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. But my point is, my point is that there were two instances of basically the same scenario, and you see how each of the, I guess, MCs would handle it. Saint definitely is a safer, as much as it can be a safer. It's definitely safer under Saint's eyes.
It's interesting what she calls out. It is from the scholar, which I believe is it a fusion rifle or is it a scout?
That's a scout rifle.
Okay. So Saint 14 calls out enough. Sola, who is the transgressor, took a step back. A transmat deployment fired behind her. She turned, perplexed at the massive armored figure, now stood before her. I don't know what strange light you are weaving, Warlock, but this is too far. I didn't realize trials had gone soft.
Mm-hmm.
No, your victory stands. This is not the Crucible. There is no punishment. But I will not allow needless torture of a guardian. Isn't guardian on guardian violence the point? Strength through death? You are no guardian. I
Yeah.
hope you know what company you keep. And he had turned to Krimik. Krimik? Krimik 5?
Yeah.
Strange names.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how, yeah, that character in particular, Sola, who was very much so apparently an original Trials fighter with the way that she speaks, saying that Trials had gone soft. Who, like, if the original Trials are true and Guardians actually died during it, and this one is the softer version where Guardians survive it, it's definitely telling for those who are putting other Guardians down for good.
I would say it's more in that case. I would definitely would be more of the intent, but from original trials, I would think it's more of heat of the moment kind of thing
Hmm.
for most guardians, with some outliers here and there.
Dino's saying that the first final death was in the Red War, though. If that's the case, then why? Then
No,
was it just the experiment?
That was
Huh?
That's an accurate statement. The first return to light was in the Red War, was when the light was extinguished, because the
Right.
guardian died right as, like, I think something about, like, they got caught in a pulse grenade, or like it was something weird, but it happened just at the right time so that he wasn't able to be resurrected, and that's when the D minor note was played, which Vance got all happy about.
Okay. So that's
But
when the first.
that's the only, I think I would almost go on record and say I think that's the only true death in Trials that we have. The two scenarios with Sola, with Saint, and then I can't remember the unnamed Titan with Vance, they called the match off basically before either of them went too far. The unnamed Titan got golden gunned by the hunter, because the ghost, he held the gun he basically was playing Russian roulette with the ghost, and the ghost panicked, resurrected the hunter. The hunter was resurrected and immediately fired off a golden gun and killed the Titan. And so that wasn't, neither side were RTL'd, but it was the situation where he was threatening the ghost. And then with Sola, she was experimenting. She was basically torture killing. I can't remember who it was. Was it a hunter that she was torturing? But anyways, she didn't actually RTL them. So they're technically, in lore, I think there is only one true death in Trials. But that goes back to Saint's whole thing of, like, death is one thing. That's not, needless torture is a completely different thing.
Right. It's that towing of the line of light and dark at that point.
Right.
So I'm kind of skimming back through Trials and Tribulation, trying to find the true death. So because the timing of Trials and Tribulation happens way before the Red War. So there was, if that's the case, if the death actually occurred, it technically wasn't through Trials itself. It was before Trials was established, because that's what caught their attention, the ringing of the tone.
So the ringing of the tone was started when they were first on Mercury, and the Cabal attacked. One of the detachments of Cabal attacked, and one of the Warlock sisters who had been with the original disciples, they fell in the battle protecting the civilians, and Vance recognized a change in the tone. He basically heard the tone, and he mentioned it to Feora, who then kind of got the Warlocks to engage in some Thanatonatic rituals to confirm it. And then once they confirmed it, that's when the trials started. So it was actually the first time that anyone heard a tone was actually not in Trials at all. It was the Warlocks were actually defending the civilians from a Cabal detachment on Mercury.
Right. And their death, without being a final death, already
Correct.
signaled the tone.
Yeah. So like anytime, which actually begged a question I wrote down, because I was like, so does that mean that Lighthouse is pinging off anytime a Guardian dies
Within the
period?
vicinity?
Like, well, yeah. Like, I mean, is it within a vicinity? Because like Trials, when they're doing Trials, they're kind of all, because the maps were, and this is again me kind of speaking a little bit out of my comfort zone because I didn't really play Trials. The maps were static for the event, but it was just for that weekend. Like the following weekend, it'd be a different map, right?
Yes,
Like
within
they
essentially like
rotated
a few
maps.
weeks.
Yeah, it rotated maps, but it didn't rotate between matches. It rotated between
Weekends.
It was weekly.
weekends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that begs the question to me. My question when I was reading that was like, does that mean the Lighthouse picks up the deaths of all Guardians? Which, I mean, isn't. I don't really want to say yes or no, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. Though, if that is the case, then why did it take that long for Vance to recognize it?
Also, why would he need his own tournament to...
Right, and I think that and which kind of goes, which is why I kind of go back and forth on it, because there is a call out within Trials and Tribulations about how they have special setup with a connection to the Lighthouse with the map.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a sense that they have to prep the maps, which goes back to, okay, maybe it is a vicinity thing, but yeah,
Interesting.
I kind of
Can
bounce
I-
back and forth on that one personally.
Can I take a little bone to pick with the D sharp minor thing real quick?
Yeah, go for it. I mentioned it to you because I was like, I actually didn't know if it was meant to be something. I didn't know if there was something significant about that key, like in a symbolic manner.
So, okay, so there's a few things that are funky with this whole D sharp minor thing. One, no one hardly ever calls that key D sharp minor. Most people are like E flat minor, D sharp minor, whatever. But the other thing on top of that, when you designate something as minor, you are not designating a single note. It's not a single tone. You're designating a series of notes, or possibly, if they're meaning it in this way, an interval of two notes, because you can have um, designation of distance between the notes. You have major, minor. You can have augmented or diminished. The minor designation is either a reference to a series of notes or two tones that are played at the same time, or back to back. But the idea of D sharp minor being the only thing played, that doesn't make any sense because D sharp is just what it is. So in my theory, the tone that he hears is actually a series of notes that are overlaid over the top of each other. Minor is often used to designate sadness or disparateness in
That's
music.
yeah.
So
That's what I was
it's
trying to figure out. I was like, I think that might be what they were going for.
yeah, I think that's what they were. And D sharp is such a weird note because it's not something you see all the time.
So maybe they were
Just
trying to do like this odd
mhm.
sadness thing.
I think so, or like a it could also be a minor second, which are two notes directly next to each other, which would sound very clashy. So,
Mm.
Which
I
was
had-
what,
so
yeah, because I think that was called out that the difference was it was normally harmonious, if I think, and so when it was an
shiny.
RTL, the disharmony would have been interesting. I'm more curious what you guys think this whole super secret thing that they figured out was.
I am too, because when I hear what Green just said, it makes me wonder what's clashing with the sound of our light. If it's getting pinged off the towers, if there's something else there.
Mhm. So that is a very, very good point because when you have something that resonates, it means it vibrates. That's how resonation works. You can resonate. A really fun trick if you have a tile shower is if you are a pretty decent singer, you don't need to be an awesome singer. You can basically take what's called a siren and slide up in pitch. And at one point during the, I know, Blue, my goodness, really? You stop to type that in chat. If you were in a tile shower, you could be fully dressed because Blue is going to be a child about this. Um, and you do a siren where you're just and you're going all the way up, and there is going to be one point in that siren where you guys are terrible, where the resonant actually vibrates the tiles at the correct frequency and it will sound louder. It's very significantly louder. You don't actually have to put any more effort in, but the tiles will basically sing back to you. That's what I imagine what's going on with with these lighthouses is that the frequency of the types of deaths that are happening are resonating with the tower in such a way that it signals it to be a lot louder than any other time.
Yeah, see, and I agree with Trigger. He says it might be like a silent song that a guardian's death interrupts. You only hear the mistake. Going back to
I
the
can see
idea of
that. Yeah.
going back to the idea of the music of the spheres.
Hmm. So
I can
hold
see.
on.
But and my only counter argument to that is that in the music of the spheres, would the guardians be a harmonious factor or a disharmonious aspect? Because we're kind of an abomination.
Okay. Pause that question because that's a lot longer answer. Lux, what were you going to ask?
I was gonna go in the exact opposite direction when you said something about interrupting. What if we're interrupting the death song because we're coming back to life?
Oh. So it's not actually the
So
death
you're
itself,
interrupting the
but it's the.
aria, the
Mm-hmm.
resurrection. But my counterpoint to that then why is when we do have a final death, it's so jarring?
I wouldn't necessarily say, well,
You know, like that. I
oh,
mean, I like it. I like that train of thought because that definitely stands with the vast majority of it. But then you have the issue of the time of when you have an guardian who has a true death, and it actually is like called out as something very significant.
well, what if it's like, so when a guardian dies and that song is being played, it's harmonious because the light may be playing a similar song back to bring you back to life or a similar
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And when you suffer that final death,
The light
it goes all the way
missteps.
through. Like it eats the dark, like the darkness eats the light or whatever the death finally.
Okay,
It
I can see
absorbs
that.
It could
it.
be the sound of the light dying. There could be that one.
Man, that's
I
intense.
like that.
That's visually very intense. Like if you think about that from a visual perspective, the idea of the death and the light pulsing out. Because if you think about how Cade died and what we saw with that, or when the Traveler was
Mm-hmm.
initially like bottled up back in Red War, that was pretty disparate as far as the sounds that were going on at that point and the crash or the I want to go back and play that mission now with Cade, the last call
Well,
mission,
because
because
yeah,
you hear something, it's a tone, but I don't know if it's the same kind of pulsing tone as being described here.
well, and I know with like visually at least, the pulse is more for when Sundance is destroyed
Right, but
than when
that's
Cade is.
But isn't that where the lights come from? Like the go after a guardian dies, the ghost brings up that, like especially in game, that little light that it starts to resonate to bring us back.
Mm-hmm.
When
But
the
it's
final
the
step,
it's
the reflection just it doesn't have anywhere to get caught by the ghost. It just goes out.
sure, it's the release of the battery, essentially. You blew up the battery, and the
Mm-hmm.
light is going back out and spreading back
Or
out.
the other thing is, going off what Lux is going with, the other thing that could be is that the ghost is interrupting the discordant and making it a harmonious sound. So when a guardian has a true death, the ghost isn't able to interrupt the tone.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a couple ways you could spin that, actually, that would make. But I think ultimately it is because it's part of a larger symphony, or large, whether you want to call it the aria of death, the song of life. We've had so many references at this point to that. I mean, not to mention the overarching large music of the spheres, theme that has been in Destiny since the inception of it.
Right.
I think
Which
that. No, go for it. Go for it.
Oh, I'm just ready to dive back into that because Music of the Spheres is a fascinating subject, but
You're telling me.
um
I think you fell into the rat. I
I
remember you messaged me and I was like, "Welcome. Hey, you can go anywhere in here.
right.
You're not going
But
back anytime soon."
the Music of the Spheres is this it's an idea that's not necessarily new. It's a very, very, very
No,
old idea. It's an ancient philosophical concept about how the movements of the celestial bodies are proportionate and that there
universal.
is a harmonious aspect. And you have to remember that during this time when these concepts were being really, really fleshed out, that the music and science and mathematics were all intertwined, which if you really, really look at music, it is still very mathematical and
I
it's
was
still
yeah.
very,
The
very
interesting
scientific too.
so the interesting thing, real quick, on talking about your connection there, is that
Mm-hmm.
so I was doing the Destiny 1 tower public announcements to kind of do the
Mm-hmm.
testing for the stuff. There is a large amount of references to the Traveler, the Traveler being in a valiance, and the change in valiance for the Traveler.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually a component of a equation written by Ptolemy in the 2nd century to explain to explain the universal movement of planetary bodies, because at that point in time they were starting to notice what was called retrograde motion, which is the drag, basically. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, this isn't matching what we've all kind of taken on faith from Aristotle. And so Ptolemy actually went out and made an equation that explained how the retrograde movement was not a counterproductive argument to be made against the the universal movement. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the reference that is being used to explain the motions of the Traveler back in D1. It was a
That's
really,
interesting.
really interesting little dive that I got to go down.
So the music of the spheres is the idea that everything around you is resonating. And specifically large celestial bodies, they have their own song. And there's been plenty of composers over the years who have done different play-ons to this idea. I think a really, really popular one is the Holst song, The Planets, but there are plenty of different songs out there, including the Music of the Spheres, created specifically for Destiny. And each song generally has its own key, which means that each planet has its own series of tones that it likes to play around with, that it resonates well with based off of its components and its biological setup within the planet and composition itself, which makes me wonder that within trials and tribulations, these deaths if they're resonating specifically with the Vex technology of the lighthouses on Mercury, they're resonating in a way that is being hmm? Or
No,
you
no, I just had an idea, but no, continue. Sorry.
it's just the Guardians don't necessarily resonate at the same frequency as planets. So the Vex created something that allows them to gather those frequencies, which is also very weird, in my opinion. They're gathering intel on us all the time.
What if they're gathering intel on the Traveler and we all kind of chew back its light, its frequency, or its song?
hmm We're feeding them information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing is when you resonate with something, that means you're in harmony with them, right?
Oh yeah,
So if you're
that's
if Guardians are resonating with Vex technology,
hmm
Wait, who had that theory that the light might have created the Vex?
It's been around. I think it's something that I've seen a few other people in Reddit talk about as well, that the Vex could theoretically be on the side of the light, even though they
mm-hmm,
have a different functionality versus
mm-hmm,
the side of the dark, like the hive. Because
From what?
even the Elixni are not darkness
Mm-hmm.
necessarily.
Isn't the only reason the Vex even do hive practices is because of Coria?
The Black Garden.
yeah, pretty much.
That could be a byproduct, right?
Well,
Because we don't know
and
about.
that's a byproduct because they were trying to understand the geometry of our realm when they were brought into it.
Well,
So,
yeah, Coria ascertained that through the Books of Sorrow with Crota, right? Like the whole
and
thing,
the
or not with Crota,
Ecumen
with Oryx.
and the
Mhm.
Ecumen, which is its own very disturbing theory
Mhm.
Hmm.
because how did Coria get access to the Ecumen? Anyways, yes.
Interesting. So if the Vex are just trying to the Vex may not be able to necessarily attain the same status or the same level of usage of light, but maybe they're trying to use it.
Yeah, understand how it
Well,
works.
or either that, or they're just if light is truly like an anima level energy source, it's maybe just they're trying to understand just the same way the Nine are trying to understand it.
Mhm.
They're just trying to understand how energy works in this realm.
So here's my next question, and this is tiptoeing towards Sunday's recording a little bit. The opening card of Trials and Tribulations talks about the planting of the seeds within Mercury, essentially. It was supposed to be a garden world. The I know. I'm just figuring, Blue, this is gonna be a one shot, not
Oh, okay.
a advanced
Okay,
intro
cool.
episode
That's
because
fine.
of the way this one's going.
That's
Um,
fine. I just wanted to make a
just
comment.
yep, yep. So the chapter one instigate from Trials and Tribulations talks about the seeding of Mercury, and it initially talks about it through the eyes of the what we assume is somewhat the traveler, based off of not only the specific uh, formatting that the words take with the weird, I don't know what to call them, the vertical
Pipes.
lines.
Yeah, they're
Are they
pipes.
pipes?
Mm-hmm.
I did not
Yep.
know they had a name.
Yep. Pipe
I
delineated.
feel
That's what we do all the time with APIs.
huh, I feel like I'm reading Mario now.
That's yep. Okay. Continue.
N-
It's an
uh,
alternative to tab delineated or comma delineated. So usually you'll get like pipe delineated information feeds.
Gotcha. So in that, you kind of get the idea that it's the traveler speaking, but it's in complete description of the Vex being born in that area. Did you guys catch on to that at all, or have you guys looked through that at all?
Yep. The other fun thing is to take out the words that are within
Oh,
the pipes.
it doesn't quite. It doesn't work completely. There's one spot it doesn't work.
Yeah, there's one spot that it's a little difficult, but it was a fun little. I was like, I wonder what happened, and then I think was it the first one that it doesn't work, or was it the second one that it doesn't work? I can't there was one of them it works actually pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, it's a little bit of an awkward snag at one part, but I thought that was interesting because I was like, because that's how we within like databases and delineations, that's what you use that for, is to denote basically that's going to be in a separate column. So if you eliminate the piped things, then you get actually I was doing it originally just to see if there was a different message. It didn't really change much, but
so to be fair, in constellations, when the speaker is hearing the traveler, it's with double pipes.
Yes.
Versus
that means or. Encoding double pipes is the symbol for or. Like double ampersands is usually and, like a hard and. So like if you're filtering something, you'll either see double ampersands or double pipes. So that's an and or statement within a filter.
But this is definitely not an and or thing.
Correct. I think I took that as they were using that to
delineate two voices.
Yeah.
So, but the question is why do we have whose perspective are we seeing with the opening of Instigate, and why is there a secondary voice? Does Trials have both the light and dark being so closer? I don't necessarily want to say closer to equal, but so thinly like veiled between the two, like there's no differentiation from there. Is that literally what we're seeing, is a sharing of both light and dark being reported through here, or through the eyes of the Vex themselves? Like, are the Vex describing this to us on Mercury? And if so, why do the Vex care? Like, who is trying to talk to us? Like, why do they care to say something?
I love that. It's an excellent question. Like, don't get me wrong, it is an amazingly accurate question, but I just love the why.
It drives me crazy.
It's almost as bad as a subway on a planet that has nowhere to go.
Fucking Io. Is it the winnower and the gardener?
Yeah.
In the opening of Trials and Tribulations, you think it's the winnower and gardener?
Oh, like, you mean like, do you think that's the
speaker at that point, or the voice of that card?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I would say that every time we have seen references to them, they have not followed that particular format, whereas we have seen similar formatting with other characters. So, just in like contextual history there, I'd be more inclined to say it's something along those lines than something completely unrelated, if that makes sense. But I'm not going to say it can't be. I mean, that's the fun part.
I don't know. That's one of the things that bugs me most about that book. Also, trying to record that card audibly is a pain in the tuchus.
Oh, I can imagine.
What if it was? I'm just trying to put together in my head if For any reason, this is Brother Vance, and he's hearing a voice in his head.
You know, that was the first thing that Twitter blew up about as far as the lore people on Twitter. I think Anon made the joke of Brother Vance is the next speaker, which broke.
He's nicknamed the Speaker of the Lighthouse.
I know. It's just one of those things that makes you kind of cringe a tiny bit.
I just found it. Yeah, I mean, I like how even Vance calls out the irony of that. Like, even he was like, "That's really cute." Like, he can't stand the Speaker. Almost, it seems.
I hear the word speaker, and immediately I went to Saint 14, since he would know. Based on the first sentence, it was / supposed to be a garden world.
Mm-hmm. That also, isn't that the actual voice line we get during the mission when we first go to Mercury back in Curse of Osiris? Like, there's that mission where it talks about the garden world and whatnot.
Yes, I think so.
It's almost as if we're getting not only the history of that area. I don't remember who's the one who's talking about it. Maybe Sagira?
I think it was either Sagira or Ikora. It was a female voice, wasn't it?
It's been so long since I played that mission.
I know, I'm right there with you.
Man. That, and if it could be a call out to just the setting, a very strange call out to the setting, and I do think it's a little bit more than that, but
yeah, it was like Ikora. Dino has the quote.
Thank you, Dino.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting to contemplate that. Now, in the Trials weapons, we get an actual scene from an event of Trials, or from a game in the tournament, through the eyes of a particular fire team. And Blue, you mentioned this earlier, how the Warlock, and we had talked about it a tiny bit earlier, about how the Warlock kind of stepped outside her bounds and basically was doing a Nova Bomb inside of another Guardian.
Yeah, Sola, I think it's, was it Scath, I think is her last name. She's a special lady.
Special is, I think, a little nice,
like Jack the Ripper was a special person.
Sure. She was. That's what we're calling it.
Green's like, okay, if that's the definition.
If you guys have never read the Trials weapon cards, I do think it's kind of a fun one.
It's a good one, yeah.
It's a fun series because it actually reads almost like a comic book, in my opinion. It's a lot more action-based and a lot more akin to what I've seen when it comes to people who run Trials, who are not backpack gods that actually have to use teamwork and not just sacrifice their charges to...
I like how it like calls out some of the strategies that they use. Because I think Krimke is the sniper or whatever.
He's the one who watches the flank, for the flank.
And then like they have like their own little call outs and, you know, all the stuff that's going on with the guy. Is it Thunderclash? He gets tightened, and then like they're like, oh, I gotta go cover for him, you know. Well, I just like how there's like the it's a humanizing a little bit to the Guardians that are in the lore. I like that particular piece.
I do like how the Titan basically gets told when to Thunder Crash. He's like running at this guy with a shotgun, and I don't remember Krimke or Sola that yells at him to actually Thunder Crash now. But it's like...
No. I think he was no. I think it was the guy who was
yelling help.
Yeah, he was yelling help because the Titan was thunder crashing him, and he's like, "Oh no, thunder crash!" He was calling out, and that's why I think, if I remember,
gotcha.
I think it's Krimke, but he's like rolling his eyes because he's like, "Oh, I gotta go help him." Because I think it was a warlock, wasn't it? And he had a fusion rifle or something.
Yes, somebody had a fusion rifle. I don't remember the class, but the fusion rifle was charging up.
I like your description of it though, like it's almost like a text graphic novel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yara is another one, and Saji or Sadhij. I don't know how.
I have those all on the. I put them
Tristan.
all on the map of Guardians.
So a fun thing about these is if you're reading these cards and you see there's two different fire teams. These two different fire teams are talking about the same instances within the match too.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the Astral Horizon, you get it from the viewpoint of Sadhij.
Yes.
I am so terrible.
I think he's the one.
Names.
I think he's the one that gets thunder crashed.
Yeah. Let's see here. The Sachi felt the current surge through him and arc through the air, connecting.
Oh no, he is the Titan. I think okay, he is the Titan. He is the Titan. Okay.
As his opponent's fusion rifle lets loose, Saji surrendered himself to the light. His muscles convulsed as droves of arc energy pulsed through his nervous system. So you get the same instances through two different fire teams' eyes. It's
very a la Kentark 3, which I also really enjoyed reading because of that exact same pattern, like the breaking up of the same event with the Kentark that was from 3 different perspectives. From here, I think you actually end up getting 5 different perspectives. I don't think
you have Kataki.
6.
Yeah.
Do you get all 6? I couldn't remember if
you do.
Okay. I couldn't remember if you got all 6.
The Eye of Soul card that you were talking about with what is his name? Keki or Katais?
Yeah.
Kataki.
And how it whoever the Titan is that's supposed to be helping him, just let him get hit with the Thunder Crash before he
Sacrifice.
Oh, I do like how each of the weapons, I think, that are being used in this card, this is something I'd have to go back and double check on, but I think each of the weapons are specific towards each of the people that are talking. Because the card for Exile's Curse for the fusion rifle is also talking about the Titan that's thunder crashing and the charge that he's trying to charge up the fusion rifle, Katake's fusion rifle.
Yeah. I kind of got the feeling that, if I remember right, I think that was accurate too, because I think there might be one that doesn't. I think because there's a sniper, right?
Snipers, Kremke's.
Okay, is that Kremke's? Okay, that was the one that I couldn't.
I like how we're calling him Kremke, even though that is a Big Bang Theory name and not how it's spelled at all. It's like
that's its accepted. That's its accepted nickname now. I know. It's not like the first time I've misnamed something.
Kremeek Fives. He's an Exo. Yeah, Exo Hunter. Yeah. His is the sniper. The Titan that was charging was Exile's Curse, which is the fusion. I can't remember if it's Scholar or Summoner that is Sola's.
I
think it's Scholar.
It's the Scholar. It's got Skola, and when she tried to hurt that other Guardian when Saint 14 stepped in. Because I'm looking at the lore cards right now because I have them.
Nice. Is Tomorrow's Answer as well? Yara's rocket launcher. That's kind of cool how these are actually the weapons of Trials members being used to tell the story. I like it.
I like how it's a little meta when they're talking about, this is all we get for heavy ammo.
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit. Did heavy ammo drop? It did not drop the same way back in D1. Like only one person got heavy back in D1, right?
In
Yeah,
D1, you grab the
yeah.
crate, all 3 teammates got it.
Okay.
You could do, but then they went back on that with D2 if I remember right, and because
Yeah, they
like
started
originally with
nerfing it.
D2, yeah,
Because I have gameplay clips where me and my fire team would run up against another team, all holding
Mhm.
a bolt caster.
Oh
Just
gosh.
running up to them, blocking, and then just swiping when we got close enough.
Dang. Okay, speaking of swords, this is just a hot take I want from you, and we're gonna close out after this, I think, because we're getting it to be a little bit long on our end. But how do you feel now that you have unlimited blocking?
I like it. I like it a lot. You can
Yeah.
actually pull off a lot of crazy stuff with the block.
Can you block if you don't have any ammo?
No, you have to
Okay.
have ammo in the sword. When you have ammo in the sword, it takes over your melee and gives you something called sword energy, and
Mm-hmm.
that energy is used to either block or use a heavy attack, which is in my opinion, overall nerf to swords, seeing that you only get one heavy attack before you have to wait for it to recharge,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of sucks with like my favorite weapon, Black Talon, because you can kill one guardian with a full charge, but if you do a second one right after, it's not enough to kill.
Interesting. So
But
can you block infinitely with it, or is it
it will go out eventually. But it's a weird way the system works. While you're just standing there blocking, there's a I think it's called endurance, which is how
okay?
long you can keep a block. But as soon as you take damage, it goes into your guard stat, so it stops decreasing and starts decreasing depending on how much damage you do. And then its
Okay.
efficiency is how much chip damage you're going to take from the attack. I actually made a video that's a little long about what you can or can't block with supers using that Black Talon.
Well, that's cool. I've seen it a lot more. I've seen a lot more swords in Crucible now because of it. I was just curious if anybody tried to run in like a Titan holding the shield and basically providing a Reinhardt shield, a very, very tiny Reinhardt shield as people move through the map, but it doesn't seem like you could do that for very long without taking too much damage.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
But you
Well,
can kill a like say if a Titan casts his shield and he blocks and starts walking forward, trying to be a what did you call it? A bard,
Yeah,
Reinhardt.
Reinhardt.
You can
Mhm.
just hit him once with Black Talon and kill him. It will bypass
Whoa.
it and go through it. It's really weird some of the interactions that happen with that weapon in particular.
I Is it considered a beam weapon at that point then? Because that's you can do I think the same thing with like Wave Splitter and stuff for certain types of supers.
I have no idea what the projectile is considered. It would make sense though.
Because any of the linear like fusion rifles or the line rifles like that, like Wave Splitter and Cold Heart, will go straight through an Arc Strider's block.
Hmm.
If they're doing the middle tree blocking, it will go right through it, not a problem. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. All right, Blue. I am thoroughly trialed out at the moment.
Well, you want to do shout outs? Lux, you got any shout outs for us this week?
Uh, not at the. Well, hmm. You guys go ahead while I can think of something real quick, please.
Green?
Okay. Shout out to the various people on Twitter and uh my Discord DMs who have reached out this last week for just kind of touching base with me. It's been a very stressful week this week for my family for some slightly personal reasons, and so my shout out goes to you guys for reaching out and checking on me and making sure things are going okay. So thank you for being there. Sometimes it's hard to pull yourself out of the dark without a little helping hand from a message like that. So thank you. I appreciate you guys. Blue?
My shout out to this elite who is somehow managing to dodge. Oh my gosh, he actually boarded my warthog.
It's pretty funny to watch, not gonna lie.
I'm surprised.
He kicked you out of the ward. That is amazing.
This dude gets a shout out because that was some grade A dodging on his part. But no, actually, a huge shout out to Pins. He sent me a care package, and I got a load of new Halo pins. So little from Loot Crate. So a really big shout out to him. I'm an adamant addictee of push the label, or what are they? Soft enamel pins. I don't know what you call them. But yeah,
enamel pins, lapels.
I'm not allowed to buy them because if I did, I wouldn't have anything left because they're so fun. They're so fun.
You wouldn't have a surface that wasn't pierced with a pin.
That is very true. So, but no. So yeah, and also just a shout out for everyone who is just keeping on. This on these times, it's not easy for anyone. And you know, whether you're needing support and getting it, or you are helping others who need it, you know, it's appreciated. And I think that cannot be said enough. But with that, Lux, did you get?
Yep, Lux's turn.
Yeah, I would just like to say a shout out to Cobb One Art, who's been really supportive of my streams lately.
Nice.
And I want to give a shout out to all the essential workers that are going through all this stuff. I'm unfortunately have to be one myself, so working out there and being worried what I might bring home is a little worrisome from time to time, but we gotta stay out there and keep working. So
yeah, just being cautious, being aware, being on top of things. That's going to be a huge protectant for anybody who is out there who doesn't get a chance to necessarily stay home. I know that for some people who are staying home, that is also an incredibly stressful event based off of work and money and whatnot, and not having money. But it's a stressful event all the way around, especially for those people who are still either in fast food or medical or working in the essential manufacturing of things. Like that's not an easy gig. I don't envy you guys, but I appreciate you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And my last shout out would go to Hydra.gg. It's been a great org that's been supporting me for a very long time, and I would really appreciate it if you guys can go send them a follow on their Twitch or on Twitter at Hydra.gg.
Yeah.
Definitely. And as always, just want to thank you for your time. And remember, with wisdom we conquer. Stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring.
Woo!
And this fucking tank master.
I just not.
This is the guy that I was wrangling with when you jumped into chat. He's a annoyance. Because he hides all the way back there.
I just don't understand. I don't understand Halo War. I mean, I get Halo Warzone, but it's just like, it's just a giant team battle.
This version is. So normally it's Jesus.
Hey, there's a ghost there.
Yeah, no kidding. I was like, I was in the middle of a conversation, sir. The actual Warzone is PvP/PvP, and it's constant PvP. So it's like big team battle plus all this nonsense. Which is why I don't play normal Warzone, because that is way too much nonsense to keep track of. But
gotcha.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's a good way to, especially right now with double XP going, it's a good way to get a crap ton of XP. Did we actually manage to kill him already? That's impressive.
Nice.
This is basically firefight. To be fair,
would you say it's kind of like Gambit, but like with invaders all the time?
Yes, actually, that was actually one of the really funny things is the time Halo 5 was kind of talking about. I can't remember actually timing-wise. I think Halo 5 had Warzone before Gambit. But I'm not sure. Pins, correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, it was kind of basically they took the logic of ODST's Firefight and threw in Big Team Battle, which is about as chaotic and insane as it sounds, because you not only do you have PvP, then you also have the PvE aspect. On top of you have like right now, I'm having to defend a particular point. So not only do you have to, like in a normal Warzone match, you would also have to defend from invading players who are trying to take, point A or point B or whatever, as well as defending, against Covenant or Forerunner, or whatever, what have you.
And is it dependent on your kills, what kind of upgrades you can get?
Yeah, so you have different levels of what's called Rex, and you can after certain basically experience unlocks additional levels, and you can do like as you get more. I think max is 9, so as you get higher and higher, you get more powerful Rex that are unlocked. Oh, I got an invisible sword. That is absolutely not useful, but I'll take it. Not sure what I'm going to do with this, but I'll go stick somebody with it.
That's what she said? I don't know.
I hope that's not what she said. That would be a very awkward conversation.
Depends on the type of situation you're in.
Yeah, some people,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, okay. I'm not, there's no way I'm getting out of that with...
Nope. We're not recording.
Oh, we're not recording anymore?
I don't think so.
I mean, we're streaming, but...
Right.
Die! I got a sword!
Come here, Blue wants to stab you with something. He wants to put something in you.
Yeah, that sword is... that sword is a beast. That sword is really fun in Super Fiesta. That's the cheap ass sword that Ben and I will lose our shit over because they will crouch walk everywhere. Because if you are walking really slow, you're completely invisible.
That seems a little much.
Right, which is why it's usually only seen in Super Fiesta.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, I mean, it's up there with the answer as far as like if we see it in action, Ben and I will pretty much dedicate 100% of our resources to just hunting down the person who has it.
Oh Lord. Okay, you guys, I am going to actually jet a little bit. So.
All right.
Thanks, Lex, for hopping on with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, I will talk to you guys later. Bye, stream.
Stream, I'll stay on until the end of this particular round. This is not an ideal weapon for this situation.
I'm gonna head out too, Blue.
All right, definitely.
Some healing practice. But thanks for having me again, sir.
Of course. You guys have a great night.
Latest.
All the grenades. All the grenades. All the grenades. Okay, end of round. Wow! 4. Boopity boopity boop boop boop. Now comes the slow, painful journey across the map. Oh, hey, look. Level 7. Ka-dunk. Ka-dunk. Aha! I am getting pushed. Dunk. Dunk. Oh no! Oh. It was very rude. That ship. God bless it. Ew. This dude is very, very brave in this wasp. There are 2 tanks in this room, and he is flying in between us. It's so fast. Oh no, where'd he go? The box does not want to move. Oh. Blast it. I'm not hitting anything. Up, up, up. Hey! Oh my gosh, dude. I don't think you're gonna get it. Do it! Do it! Do it! Get up there! Alright, guys. You guys have a great night. We will see you. We're going to be doing another one on Sunday morning at about 10 a.m. So if you guys want to jump in for that one, that will be, we will be doing Trials and Tribulations, the lore book specifically for that. But yep, you guys have a great night, and we will see you later.